This is my British and Irish Lions 23 to face Australia in Brisbane this Saturday. So I want to point out before I start selecting these players that I'm selecting based on who I think is available. So there are rumours around a couple of players being injured, a couple of players carrying knocks but are potentially going to play. So I'm going to assume that the ones that are potentially going to play are available for selection. So bear that in mind as I go through from 1 to 23. So my front row that I would start would be, at loose head, I would go with the very dynamic ball-running Ellis Genge. I think he, to some extent, has played his way into this Lions team. I think that he may well start as well. I think that is who Farrell will start, and it is also who I would start. So Ellis Genge with a loose head. I'm going to select Dan Sheehan at 2. I think Sheehan is the front runner. I think he's one of those players who you would have maybe nailed on if you want to start. And he would in my team as well. So Dan Sheehan, and then at tight head, assuming that he is fit, and I think he is. I think he's just struggling with sort of minor calf injuries or something at the moment. I'm not entirely sure, but Tadhg Furlong will be my tight head, because if Tadhg Furlong is anywhere near his best, I think that he is the best option at tight head. So Genge, Sheehan and Furlong for me. In the second row, in the 4 shirt, it's going to be Maro Itoje, and he is the captain, so he is going to start. He's good enough to start, obviously, but Itoje is in the 4 shirt. Now, in the 5 shirt, you could quite feasibly pick any of Tadhg Beirne, Ollie Chesham, Joe McCarthy, Scott Cummings. There's just a lot of options in the second row, but I'm going to go with the player who has to some extent played his way in. I liked this player before the tour. I initially selected him to be on the Lions tour. But I think Joe McCarthy has earned his place in this starting team. And I think with how I'm going to balance the back row, you can afford to have Joe McCarthy in there in the row with Itoje. So Itoje and McCarthy in the row for me. The back row has really been a bit of a heated discussion, hasn't it, for a while. So at 6, it does depend on how you want to play this back row, but I don't think the Lions can afford to not have another line-out option, like a proper line-out option in the back row. And I'm going to pick a rangy jumping 6. So Ollie Chesham would be my choice there. I think the line-out looks so much better when Chesham is in it. He looks really good when he's calling it. The last game, I know they weren't up against much, but I think it was 100% of the line-out, either last game or the one before, in like 11 or 12 line-out. So it's been impressive recently. Chesham at 6. At 7, and this might not be hugely popular, but I'm going to go on long-term form and proven test 7s. I'm going to pick Tom Curry, and I do like Tom Curry. Tom Curry is, I would favour towards him. So Curry, you could put Jack Morgan there. You could put, Josh van der Fleer there. You could even put Ben Earl or Henry Pollock there, and I don't think you'd have a huge amount of complaints, but it hasn't been in great form, Tom Curry, on this tour, but I think he's just got enough banked behind him for Farrell to start him and for me to pick him. So I'm going to say Tom Curry at 7. And at number 8, I like a big abrasive 8. So you'll be unsurprised to hear that I'm going to pick Jack Conan as the number 8. So your back row is Ollie Chesham, Tom Curry, Jack Conan. The half-backs are a really easy selection. I don't think many people will be veering away from having Jamison Gibson-Park as the scrum half and having Finn Russell as the 10, especially the latter there, because they are the standouts. Finn Russell has been excellent all tour. I don't see how another option really starts there. I think that they are controlling the game really nicely when they're playing together. They've been starting together quite deliberately in a couple of games, and it's Gibson Park and Russell all day for me. In the centres, with Ringrose out of the first test, I do think that sort of rules Bundy Aki out. And I would have, regardless of their injuries or being ruled out, if I had the choice of all the fully fit centres, I would still be going Sione Tuipulotu at 12. And then I would also be going with Hugh Jones at 13 for their partnership. I do think Ringrose has been impressive on the tour. And I do think that is quite a nice headache to have if they are all available, but I can't see past that Scottish centre partnership outside Finn Russell, so that is who I would select. And in the back 3, James Lowe for me would start on the left wing. I don't think Duhan van der Merwe has had the strongest tour. I think James Lowe offers a little bit more with his kicking options. So Lowe on the left wing. I would have Tommy Freeman out on the right wing. I think he is the front runner to start out there, and he's who I would select. And then at full back, because I think Kinghorn isn't quite fully fit. I don't know if he is going to play or not. I'm going to assume he's available, but even if he is, I think Hugo Keenan is a standout fullback. He's a great player. He played well last week. I know he came into the tour. He didn't play particularly well after he was ill, and then he came in last week and he looked good against a poor team. But Hugo Keenan, again, has a bank of credit of playing well for a long time. So Hugo Keenan, for me, is who I would start this Saturday, sort of contextually around where Blair Kinghorn potentially will or won't be with the injury that he sustained in the last game. On the bench, I am tempted to push Jamie George straight into that squad, but I have refrained from doing that. So it would be Ronan Kelleher as the sub 2, with Cowan Dickey out with his head knock. Andrew Porter on the bench, and I would also have Will Stewart there as the tight head. So I think Stewart just pips it for me ahead of Beelum. I think he's a slightly stronger scrummager. And I think that's a sub front row of Porter, Kelleher, Stewart. That is a real intense scrummaging front row, and I think that front row will really do a job potentially on the sub Australian front row. So that is who I would have sub front row. Because I've started Chesham at 6, it gives me a little bit more freedom to potentially put 2 back rowers at 19 and 20 on the bench, because you can push Chesham into the second row later on. And I have gone at 19 with Jack Morgan. So there will be a Welsh player in the squad. Morgan has more than deserved a space in the 23. So you could feasibly bring Jack Morgan on at 6. You could bring him on at 7. And then in the 20 shirt, I would have Ben Earl, who you can quite feasibly bring on at 7 or 8. So I think Earl has outplayed Pollock to some extent. And he's obviously a more seasoned international than Pollock. So he's who I would trust to put out there in the first test. And Morgan as well. I think Morgan deserves to be in there. Maybe, I don't know, over Josh van der Fleer, because Josh van der Fleer has had a pretty good tour as well. But I can't see Curry, van der Fleer and Morgan all being in the test squad. It's not the balance I would go with. One of them has to miss out, so I'm afraid it's van der Fleer. So Morgan 19, Earl 20. That does mean that I've got a 5-3 split on the bench. So the sub-scrum half, I'll go with Alex Mitchell, Limbs Alex Mitchell, who has been pretty good on the tour, played in every game, I think, because of the injury to Thomas Williams, and then bringing Ben White out and resting Jamison Gibson Park. So Mitchell will be in the 21 shirt. In the 22 shirt, this is I don't know if it's a controversial one, but Owen Farrell, for me, is who I would put in the 22 shirt. Firstly, because he's got the versatility to play 10 and 12. Secondly, because he's a good kicker off the tee, which Finn Smith and Marcus Smith potentially are not as good as Farrell, arguably. I don't know. And he's just done it. He's just done it before, hasn't he? He's the calm head, the calm influence to bring on. He's that seasoned veteran of the Lions that the squad, I think, lacks. So having him to come on at 10 if need be, at 12 and push Tuipulotu out, you've got that option there. So Farrell as the 22 for me. And then that 23 shirt that has been so brutally ripped from Elliot Daly is open for other players. And I think the most versatile 23 option, if he is anywhere near fit in this team, because Keenan is starting, is Blair Kinghorn. So I would have Kinghorn there, who can cover 10 to 15. So you have all your positions covered. So there you have it. That is the 23 that I would be selecting to play the Wallabies in Brisbane on Saturday. And that 23 is constantly changing in my mind, to be fair. And it doesn't really matter what I select, because I'm just a bloke who's on YouTube doing this. So take from that what you will. Let me know what you agree with in the comments. Also, let me know what you disagree with. And if you like the content, I appreciate I'm quite new to YouTube. And as a result of that, there aren't a huge amount of subscribers. There aren't a huge amount of views. If you do like it, push the content out there a little bit, give me a like, just drop a comment, say hi, and yeah, hope you enjoy.